So the first step to snap trademark is to fill in some just basic information about yourself. So should be pretty straightforward. You can basically see here, you're going to put in your first name, you're going to put in your last name. This would be if you're whoever the applicant of the trademark is, whoever's going to be owner of the trademark. So if you're filling it out on somebody else's behalf, put their information. If you're filling it out for yourself, put your own information. But name, first name, last name, and email address, primary email address, so we can contact you, we can send it out to you, we can follow up with any questions or any other issues, but fill in that information. Once you have that, then click next, and we'll go to the next step. So the next question or next topic you'd be going over with when you're looking at a trademark is a few questions as to whether or not it's trademarkability. In other words, you can be using a name for your company, you can be using a name for a product or a catchphrase or a logo. The question is when you're filing is whether or not that's trademarkable. So there's a few questions that you'd want to consider. The first one you can see here is generally if there's a few things when you're generally not going to be able to get a trademark. There's always exceptions to the rule, but if you hit one of these criteria, you should really talk with an attorney and get some one-on-one advice before going forward. So the first one is if it's a generic term. So let's say you wanted to go get a trademark for the word apple and you are selling the fruit apple. That's a pretty generic term. Really, everybody uses the term apple for the fruit apple. Now, if you wanted to go start a consumer electronics smartphone company and you want to sell consumer electronics, people don't generally just use a common term apple for all their products, or at least they didn't used to. Now, if you're to go sell the fruit apple again, that's generic. So that's the first thing. It's a generic term. You're generally not able to get a trademark on it unless you meet some exceptions that you'd want to talk to an attorney about it. Next thing is if you're trying to trademark a t-shirt design. Generally, t-shirt designs are very difficult to get a trademark on because when you see a cool t-shirt, you see a cool design, a catchphrase, a funny image, or anything, or a great pattern, people don't associate that with the brand. They just think it's a cool looking t-shirt. So it doesn't really identify who's selling it. Now, if you're starting a clothing line and you're doing the Tommy Hilfiger, Calvin Klein, or whichever, Levi's or whichever brand you want, then you can start to look and say, okay, I'm starting a clothing line. It's going to be a full line. Then you can start to get a trademark on some of the clothing. But if it's just a cool t-shirt design that you want to protect, trademarks are not the one to do it. Next thing is if it's a federally banned substance. If it's anything that's on the federally banned substance list, you're not able to get a trademark on it because trademarks are on the federal level and they don't allow it. Doesn't matter if your state allows it. If it's a federal trademark and you're filing for it, you can't get a federal trademark on something that's for a banned substance. Anything else or other mentioned problem areas? If there's any other things that are kind of hit into those categories that may be problematic, a lot of times you're better to say, okay, if it is going to hit into some of these areas, then you may not want to go after trademark. But those are really the big ones you're going to look at. The next standard is more on trademarkability is whether or not the trademark is confusingly similar with other trademarks that are already out there. So now what does that mean? Let's unpack that just a little bit. So when you're looking at a trademark, what is intended to do is be source identification, identifies who is selling a good and service. So if there's someone else that's already previously out there, that's out there before you, that's using a trademark and it's for the same or the similar types of goods and services, if you were to then start using the same trademark, they would be confused. Is that other person selling this product or are you selling the product? And they wouldn't know. Is Nike selling this product? Is Nike with 1K and Nike with 2Ks? Who's really selling it is probably wouldn't necessarily, they'd be confusingly similar. So when you're looking at trademarkability, generally the main standard you're going to look at is, other than the ones that we talked about right here at the beginning, second standard is whether or not it's confusingly similar. If you're aware of other trademarks that are out there that are the same or similar goods and you're thinking, okay, this is really close, you may want to reconsider because it's probably not going to meet the standard for trademarkability. The last thing to consider is also if you've already previously filed a trademark for the same or the similar mark, that's something to note. It's more of how you would want to file the paperwork so that you would indicate that you already have a mark that's the same or similar so you don't get that other mark potentially cited against you. So generally that's an easy one. If you've already filed a trademark that's for the same logo, the same word, same catchphrase, maybe it was in a different class or category, now you're filing it for something else, you're going to want to indicate that so that we can note that in the trademark application. If you meet all those standards, at least generally you're in a good position to go towards a trademark. No guarantee. It's hard to know for sure whether or not it's confusingly similar, what's always out there, whether or not you meet all the criteria. But generally, if you feel like you meet those standards and you're in a good position, then go ahead and fill out this information, select whether it's a yes or no answer, and then click next and move on to the next step where we talk or get a little bit more information about your mark. So the next part of Snap Trademark, as you're getting your trademark information, is what type of mark are you going after? And there are really two different types of marks. One what's called a design mark, and the other one that's called a word mark. And they're really about what they sound like. So a design mark is if you're to think of something that has an aesthetic nature, a look and feel to it. So if you're to think of a logo, it has typically, it may have words in it, but it also has a picture. If you're to think of the Starbucks mermaid on the side of the Starbucks cup, that's a logo and that's a design mark. If you think of the Nike swoosh, that's a design mark. If you think of the Apple, the icon, that's a design mark. So anything with the design to it or aesthetic nature that you're wanting to protect that design or aesthetic nature, that is going to be a design mark. Word mark is just the opposite. A word mark is to protect just the use of the word. So if you're to think of Nike, the word Nike, not the swoosh, swoosh is going to be designed, but the word Nike is going to be the word. So it doesn't matter if it's a different, color of font, or it's a different font type, or it's a different size. You're protecting the use of the word. So when you're looking at what type of trademark you want, either you're going to do a design mark or you're going to do a word mark, and you're going to decide which one you're going to want to go after. Now, for your which one you're trying to protect, if you're trying to decide, the question is really which one is the way you're going to brand your business. What is going to be the most valuable? If you're going to use the word a whole bunch of times and over a lot of different locations, and that's what you think your customers are going to associate with your business, then you're going to want to protect the word. It's a broad usage of that word. On the other hand, if you're going to have a logo and you're going to have a really iconic, cool looking, logo, that's what people, when they see you, want them to associate with your brand, then you're going to be wanting to protect the design. If you have both, if you have a really cool logo you're going to use a lot and a good word that you're going to use a lot, then you want to protect both of them. So select which one you want to protect once you provide that information. And then the other thing is to verify that the mark that you're going to be using is also going to be exactly the same as what it looks like. So if you're to basically, whatever the mark is that you're going to be providing information with, whether that's the design mark, and let's say we come in here and we decide a word mark. So now you're going to type in, Joe's Crab Shack. So let's say you were going to do it for Joe's Crab Shack. Obviously, you don't do it for Joe's Crab Shack, but that's just an example. What you're going to want to do is whatever you are putting in here is going to be the same as what you're actually using on your website. So the question is sometimes, one's if I want to do Crab Dash Shack, or one's if I want to do it as one word. Well, however you're using it for a brand, if you have a space in how you're using it for your brand, that's what you're going to want to trademark. If you do it as Crab Shack as one word, that's what you're going to want to trademark, or if you're doing a dash. So what you're wanting to do is make sure as you're uploading or as you're selecting either the word or the trademark, or the word mark or the design mark, put the exact same as what your mark is going to be with what you put in here. So that'd be the words. If you're doing a word mark, same as what you're going to be using for your brand, put that same in here. If you're coming in here and doing a design, you would upload there's a couple more pieces of information you'd want to know for the design. Design, first you're going to upload the design here. You're going to upload the logo. You're going to upload whatever the aesthetic nature is. If it's a product name or a product logo or a company logo or anything else, upload that here. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to want to look and see, do you have any specific claim to color? Most of the time, 95% of the time, you're not going to want to have a specific claim to color. In other words, if you have a specific claim to color, you're saying, I only care if the logo is this color. If they were to change it from red to green or to blue or some other color that's not my color, I don't care. That's generally going to be more if you have a specific color. So if you think of Mary Kate, they oftentimes will have pink, or you have, pink Cadillacs, or you have some football teams will have a specific color red on their football field. Those are specific colors. They want that color specific to them because that's what they're using. Most people, you don't care on your logo. If it changes the color, but it still looks like your logo, you're going to want to be covered. So unless you want that specific color, which is generally a much narrowing and not typically recommended, you're normally going to select no. The next thing is you're going to put any words that appear in your mark. So if you were to think of, let's say you had a logo, it was the M&M logo. So you had the little M&Ms in the background, you had the, the different imagery, but you also had the word M&M. Then, then you have in there the words M&M. So you're going to want to put in the words M&M. Or, let's say it was, if I were to go back to the Starbucks and you had the Starbucks mermaid and the bottom of the logo, you had the word Starbucks. Then you're going to want to put in here Starbucks. Something of that nature. So make sure any words that are going to appear in your mark. If you're doing a design mark, you're going to want to put that in there. Last thing is to enter a complete and accurate description of the entire mark. What does that mean? Basically, you're going to need to describe what your mark is. So let's say you were to take the Starbucks mermaid. You may say, you know, a mermaid or a mermaid made, you know, with the, you know, green or with the lines extending around the mermaid. Mermaid. And I put mermaid twice, so I'll take that out. And then you may also say, and the word mermaid at the or below the image. Now, let's say so that may be if, you know, if you're doing the Starbucks mermaid and you have the mermaid on top, you're going to give that description with the mermaid on bottom. On the other hand, let's say you were doing the Apple logo. And so you're going to say image of an apple. And let's say the apple has a bite taken out of it with a bite taken out of the right side of. So whatever that is, you're basically just giving a description of what the mark shows. So one, you're going to upload the image. You're going to talk about whether or not specific colors, any words that are included in there, and then describing the mark or describing what is shown in the logo or in the design. Once you get that information, whether it's either the design mark, you're going to fill that out. Again, you're going to want to verify that, you know, whatever it is, the words that you're using, that you don't have any dashes or spaces in the, you know, if whatever is here is the same as what's shown in the image. So any of the words or any of the description. What we don't want to do is you have a different logo that you upload, but you start using something separate on your website. So the one we register versus the one you're on your website are different. That doesn't give you any protection. So make sure to fill that out. As a reminder, on the word mark, all you really need to put is the word. Word is exactly how you use it. Once you fill in either the design mark or the word mark, fill out that information and click next, and we'll move on to discuss a little bit about classes. So the next thing you're going to want to provide as far as information for your trademark is what are called classes. Now, classes are probably one of the most important things as far as a trademark application, and also probably takes the most amount of time. As a quick explanation as to what a class is basically, for your trademark application, you have to define the types of goods and services or products and services you're going to be using in association with that trademark. So as an example, if you're to think of Nike, they have trademarks for the use of the word Nike for athletic wear, sports gear, and apparel. They haven't filed on trademarks for automobiles because they don't do anything with automobiles. So if you look at and say, okay, what are the types of classes or what are the types of products or services I'm going to use, the categories of the different goods and services I'm going to use it for. And that's really what we're going to fill in for this information. Now, you may only be in one class or one category. If you're to look and say, okay, really all we do is we sell maps. Only thing we do is we sell maps. That's it. Then you're probably going to be in one category. But let's say if you were to think you're one class. Let's say if you were to say, on the other hand, we sell maps, we also sell computer screens, we also sell televisions, and we sell cars. Those are going to be a few different classes or a few different categories. And let's say you also run a law firm. And so you're saying, okay, now we provide the service of doing a law firm, and we run a tax accounting firm. And so those are all different kind of categories. Now, question you're probably asking is, okay, that sounds great. Now, how do I know which classes or which categories I'm supposed to use? So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to click on this link, and it'll open up a separate window you'll see here. And then you're going to start identifying or looking up the different types of classes or categories that you're going to do. So simple way to do that is you just start typing in, what are you actually doing? What are the goods? What are the products you're offering? Or what are the services you're offering? So let's say you were going to offer car lighting, and that was where you were going to do, your company was doing car lighting. You would come in here and you're going to look and say, okay, there isn't anything for car lighting, but what about for lighting? So now we're going to look and say, okay, there's a lot more for lighting. We have lighting apparatuses, lighting tracks, lighting tubes, and you're going to look through and say, okay, which are the ones that are going to be most relevant to me? Let's say, as an example, you are doing lighting fixtures, and that's what you're going to do. So you're realizing, yeah, we're doing car lighting. Those would be fixtures that's going to go as part of a lighting into the car. Then you come in here. First of all, you're going to want to have the international class. International class is going to be this number right here. So we're going to grab 011 as the international class, and we're going to put it here. Then you're going to say, okay, associated goods and services. The associated goods and services are going to be right here. So where it says description, whichever one fits what the products you're going to offer, the services, you're going to put that in here. Now, so we're going to come in here and do goods and services. The next thing you're going to look at is what's called filing basis. Basically, when you're filing a trademark application, there are two different ways you can file it. One is what's called intent to use. The other one is called currently in use. Intent to use basically means, hey, I haven't actually started using this trademark yet. I haven't started selling it with a brand, haven't started selling with a product or a service, but I intend to. I'm going to do it within the next, 1 to 2 years. I plan on or sooner intend to start using it, but I haven't used it yet. Then you're going to select intent to use. And that basically means I haven't started using it. I want to, before I start using it, I want to secure that brand so that nobody else comes along and gets it or afterwards. Alternatively, if you're currently using it, meaning, hey, I'm already using this logo or I'm already using this word and it's already associated with my brand, I have a website up or have it in or storefronts or I'm offering the service or have whatever it might be, then you're going to do currently in use, meaning I'm currently using the trademark. If you're currently using the trademark, you have to provide a bit more information. So one thing you're going to want to do is priority date. The priority date basically means when did you start using your trademark application? So, or when did you start using your trademark? So if you started using your trademark, 3 years ago and you've been using it on your products for your lighting fixtures for 3 years, then you're going to put in that date. Now, if you know the exact date, if you're saying, hey, I started my business on, February 27th of 2015, that you'll put in that date here. If you're saying, well, I know it was in 2015, I think it was in February, or, I know it was in 2015, but I don't know the exact, date or time, put that in as close as you can. So let's say if we did know it was February, we're going to say, I think it was the 27th of 2015. Go ahead and put that date in. Next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put in specimens. Specimens showing the use in commerce. Basically, this is going to be evidence of how you're using your brand. So if you're to think of as an example, hey, I am using it for selling on a website. So I'll just go to one of the websites that's for a client custom LDS. And so you can see this is for religious products, and you can see that they're for journals on the product. Here's their logo. Hey, you can clearly see that they're using the logo for home decor and for gifts and scriptures and other things. And so what you could do is you could come and just get a screenshot. You just get a screenshot of selling the product. So you could click on here and you can say, okay, I'm going to take a screenshot. If you take a screenshot, you need to have two things in your screenshot. One, you have to show the URL, the domain of whatever website you're getting the screenshot from. The other thing you have to have is down in the right corner, you have to show the time and date. If you don't include both of those things, you're going to get a rejection because you don't have the URL, you don't have the time and date. They're going to say they're insufficient marks. The other thing is you're going to want to show that these marks are actually for what you're doing. So let's say you're saying, I want to get a trademark for the leather journal. Then you're going to say, okay, here's my logo up here. I can see it up here. I can see that this is offering it for sale. So now I can say this is how much it costs. Somebody can add it to a cart. You're going to want to get a screenshot showing that it is offering it for sale. Alternatively, let's say you don't have a website, you're not offering it online, but you're doing it as a product. Then what you're going to want to have is a product picture with the product, with the logo stamped on it, showing it's for sale. Or you get a picture if it's in a store and you can say, hey, here's a store, here's a product for sale. Or let's say you're offering a service and you're saying, okay, I have a storefront, here's my storefront. Or if I'm offering a service and I'm saying, here's the business cards I use, and here is the various other things. Here's my letterhead. Here's the, all the promotional information. Whatever that is, you're going to want to submit it as much as possible. Thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get is all of the types of different specimens, all the evidence you can. It's much better to submit more than one specimen, more than one type of evidence, as it is opposed to just a single one. If you submit multiple ones, if the examiner doesn't like one of the single ones, if the trademark office doesn't, and they may say, okay, we don't like two of these, but the other two are great, those are good. If you only submit one, then they're going to, if it gets rejected, then you're going to have to get a rejection, respond to it, and do that, and indicate or submit a new one. So you're really going to want to grab as many specimens. So what you can do is you can either drag all of those files put them in here. You have to put them all at once, or you can click upload. If you do, what you're going to want to do is if you have multiple ones, you can come in here and highlight multiple ones, multiple files, all at once, and then you can click OK, and it'll upload all of those. So you do have to submit them all at the same time. So put them all in one folder, highlight all the ones that you want to upload, and then put them here, upload it here. The next thing you're going to want to do is whatever the images are you uploaded, you're going to want to then go ahead and put in the description. So let's say we went back to here and we say, hey, we're going to do it for the leather journal. We get a trademark, or we get a screenshot that has the URL, has the date at the bottom, and we go ahead and upload that. Then what we're going to come in here is we're going to say, you know, image, or you're going to say screenshot of the website selling the goods that also shows the mark. Something of that nature. So you can say, okay, we've got a screenshot of a website, it's selling it, and so now you can see we've uploaded all of those. We keep coming down. So now you're going to put in for each of these images. So you may say, you know, image 1. If we have multiple images, then here's the description. Let's say image 2 was image 2. Let's say that was just for an example. You just say, hey, we're going to do image 2 is going to be the photo of the journal with the mark. So now you're going to say, well, hey, we're selling the journal, has the brand on it, has the design mark or the word on it, and so we're going to do it. So each of those, you're going to upload the specimens. You're also going to put a description of the specimens, and then you're going to go. Now, let's say as you're coming along, so we're jumping back to here. We've already done, you know, whether it was lighting or journal. We could also do journal. We wanted to keep in that theme. We can say, okay, here's a writing journal sheets, or we can do a journal for customizable journal books for writing, or whatever those may be. Let's say you have more than one thing they're selling. So we may be selling journals, and we're also selling cars. And we look and say, okay, here's cars. Now, not a toy car, it's not a race car, it's just a normal car. So again, if we had more than one category, more than one thing we wanted to protect, then you're going to come and say, okay, do you have a second class? If you do, if you have another category you want to protect, click yes. And then it's going to scroll down. You're basically going to fill out the same information for each of those different categories. Now, the thing that a lot of times people often want to do is they're going to want to simply put the minimum amount of categories because they're saying it's going to be less expensive. I'm not going to have to, because you do have to pay for each category separately. There is a fee, that's a governmental fee for each category. And they'll say, well, if I only do one, I don't have to pay as much. That is true. The thing you're going to want to consider is when you don't put in, if you don't have the category with your trademark, you don't have coverage for those goods or services. So you're going to want to the degree possible, you're going to want to put in as many categories as you can that covers what you're doing to make sure you have adequate coverage. Now, the other thing you may want to consider is, let's say we're doing cars and we're coming in here and we're going to say, okay, our cars are going to be international class 12. And so I put in here class 12. And then I say, but when I get to the goods and services, I look at the list and I'm going to say, well, I'm selling cars and I'm also selling racing cars and I'm selling monorail cars. So then you can come in here, you can copy and paste in cars. And then you're going to separate that with the semicolon and you're going to put in the next thing. So let's say I'm also selling racing cars. So normal cars, racing cars, I put in a semicolon. You're going to want to make sure it doesn't, or tab over as you copy and paste. Sometimes we'll add in a tab there. And then the last thing you're going to do is also come in here and say, okay, I'm going to sell monorail cars. So I'll also copy and paste that in. So if they're all in the same class, I mean, they're all in 12, you can add things to one list. If they're in different classes, meaning if it was 28, I would have to do a different class because it's 28, not 12. So you're going to come in here, you're going to put in all that information. Again, you're going to say, maybe it's intent to use. I don't want a third class. So once you get that all in or filled in, you click next, and we'll go on to the next section to get or continue on with Snap Legal. Good luck, and let us know if you have any questions. All right, so now that you've got all the class information, you fill up all the other information, there's just a bit more of basic information we'll need for your trademark application, which is the additional important information. And this one's going to be, basic information about your business. So if you're filing this as a business, you're going to put in that, are you an LLC, you an S Corp, or you a C Corp? If you're not, you can just put in there as a, personal or as an individual. So if you're not a business, if you don't have an LLC, an S Corp, or C Corp, you haven't otherwise formed a business, then put in individual. Otherwise, maybe you're just an LLC. So you put in LLC. Then you're going to put in your address. So I'm just going to take one of or a generic address. You can put in here, 1186 East, 1400 or 4600 South, and then maybe you're in, room 240 or in suite 240. Then you can put in here whichever state you're going to be in. So we'll go ahead and just randomly select Maine. Then you're going to put in your zip code, so 90210, just as an example. Then you can put in here, your phone number for your business, and so you can make that one up. If we're to go with the standard, one for 555, or 555, and that's always what you see in the movies, 5555. And then you're going to put in just a 1 to 2 sentence description of your business. So maybe it's just we are lighting, fixture, and race car manufacturer. So whatever that might be, you can put it in there. Make sure you can remove any spelling mistakes, and then go ahead. The next thing you'll do is, who'll be using the trademark for the goods and services. If it's a business, then you're going to put in the business's name. If you're going to put it as you an individual, meaning there isn't a business associated with it, put in your last name, first name, middle name. So I'll just say, it's the Amazing Company LLC. So whatever that might be, but just indicate what is it that the business is, the name, or who you want basically the trademark to be owned by, who will be using the mark and who will be owned by. Another thing you'll do is, does this mark include somebody's name? So if it includes whether it's your first name, your last name, somebody else's first name or last name, if it is, we just need to make some additional information. So if it's no, just click no. That's a simple one. If it is, we just need a bit more information. Is this person living? If yes, then you put yes. If they're dead, that. And is this a person, a real person, meaning it is you or somebody else or somebody else's real name, or is it a fictional person? The reason we need that is mostly, or depending on if it's uses somebody's name, and if they're a living person, not a living person, they're fictional or not, then we have to make a bit different of information in the filing. You'll have to put that information in there, and so you'll want to provide that. So with that, you'll just provide that additional information. And then the last thing is does the mark have any particular meaning in your industry or in a foreign language, or is it a connection with the goods and services? So as an example, let's say you're taking the name of your product, Apple, and you're putting in, the Spanish word for apple. Well, in apple, means in Spanish, this is the word for apple. Then you need to indicate, our mark is the Spanish word for apple. As an example, if you were the Spanish word for apple, or let's say, it had, scuba, you were scuba diving, and, scuba, and you were doing, self-contained underwater breathing apparatus was your trademark. And you're going to say, well, that's really, scuba is an acronym for that. It has special meaning in our industry or something else of that nature. Once you get all that information, whether you fill that in, you can click next, and then we'll wrap up as to how you want to file, and then you'll be done. So we're almost there. And let us know if you have any other questions.